Okay, let's start the show with this catchy tune.
Welcome to the Heart-Centered Life podcast, where we discuss everything that relates to creating a life that makes you the most fulfilled. Join us every Tuesday morning for great ideas on how to use creativity to find that heart-centered space that is your deepest happiness, so you can then successfully create the positive change that you wish to see in the world.
Now, here's your host.
Hello everyone, this is Elena Boyd, your host, welcoming you to episode 11 of the Heart-Centered Life podcast, where we discuss how to live and lead from the heart. We are here because we believe that an empowered individual who comes to his or her place of deepest happiness and who meets the world's deepest hunger from that place is positioned to create positive change in the world. If you are new to us, please check out our earlier episodes, and if you've been following us for a while and like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes to boost our visibility. In this episode, I talked to Betty Kempa, a career coach who helps high-level executives transition into their dream jobs. Betty's awesome. She lays out so clearly the 5 steps she takes her clients through to help them find career bliss. And if you're kind of stuck in a rut with your career right now, this episode is for you. You don't necessarily have to switch careers altogether. Just listening to Betty might just help you identify the reason why you may be unhappy or unsatisfied with your current job. Here's a hint from Betty. What you might be passionate about may not align with your company's mission or the value of the people you work with, and that may be causing the unhappiness or dissatisfaction. It is my great pleasure to have Betty here with us in this episode. Don't forget to download her freebie, Surefire Guide to Finding Your Passion, and the link is in the show notes below. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. All right, so we have Betty Kempa here with us today. Welcome, Betty, to the Heart.
Hi, Alina. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So good.
Betty, so you are a career coach and you have your own coaching company, and you mostly work with high-level corporate executives, so directors and vice president level,
Yeah.
And who generally are also women.
Yeah,
typically women, and you help them transition from a job that they're not happy with into a job that they're passionate about, happy with, fulfilled. So I want to say thank you for taking the time to spending the time with us today.
Absolutely.
We're really excited to hear about your journey and what you can teach us. So I know you left corporate America,
yeah,
and started your own coaching company. Could you talk to us about what made you make that, what happened to make you realize that you were not, climbing the corporate ladder wasn't for you, and how the journey was?
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's like I'm rewinding in my mind, like getting back into that time. I joke with my clients, and I was there too. I feel like I suffered from a case of the shoulds.
Yeah.
I should be happy. I should do this, right? I should be grateful for this. My journey after I graduated college, I had studied communications. So, case of the shoulds. Oh, I should get a job in communications. That's what I studied, right? Yeah. So, I broke into the corporate world in corporate communications. My dad was a successful HR executive, and I always looked up to him, right? I should get into that corporate world and follow my dad's footsteps. And then from there, just, climbing my way up the ladder. Over a decade, what would happen is I would settle into a company. I would tell myself, this is it. This is the dream. You've made it. Should be happy here. But I wouldn't be. And it was like this itch that I needed to scratch. Something felt off. Because it's kind of like I say, it's like a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
If something didn't fit, I couldn't put my finger on it. And that was the problem. The biggest struggle, I felt unfulfilled, but how are you going to just leave this 6-figure job when you're not sure what you're jumping into? So, well, what I would do is I would switch companies, right? I'd be like, it was this.
Yeah.
And I used to joke that I'm incredible in between jobs. I'd be incredible. I would negotiate. I would market myself, brand myself, elevator pitch, interview. I was stellar in between jobs. I get the job and it'd be all downhill.
Right.
So, there came a point where, essentially I was white knuckling it. I was white knuckling it and it wore me down. Their lack of work-life balance, toxic workplace culture, politics. I was terrible at playing politics. I didn't have passion around what I did. I didn't feel passion around what I did. Layoffs, it's like Game of Thrones. Who's going next?
Yeah.
I just got to that point where I was like, it was my breaking point. I knew something had to give. And that's where I activated what I call my first superpower, which is reading and research.
Right.
So I literally have every book under the sun on finding your passion. And I read them all and I took every assessment. I did every introspection and what I always tell my clients, look for patterns. No matter what assessment I took, no matter, what introspection I was doing, it was coaching. It was career coaching.
On yourself.
Yeah, like that was it. And so that's when it clicked. And I'm like, that's when I feel alive, is when I'm helping other people find their passion, get their dream job, make the transition. So it's kind of like, I feel like, when we talk about find your passion, it's not this thing that's ethereal, this like out there in the universe. It's within. You just have to tap into it. It's like you're wearing the red ruby slippers. You have to click them.
Right.
So that's when I was like, got it. And from there, went and got my certification. So, I studied out. Of course, I'm biased, but to me, it's the best coach training in the world. It's Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, known as IPEC. It's endorsed by the International Coaching Federation, which is the gold standard of coaching. And I'm doing this, by the way, nights and weekends. So I took what I call a bridge job. So I'm still in the corporate world, but I took a level down, less stress, little less pay, wasn't leading a huge team, was able to leave at 4:30. Sounds crazy, but I would go get my training, coach my clients, and I was ramping up my business until finally 9 months in, I was ready. It was all systems go. And that's where I took all my reading and research, my training at IPEC, and my experience in my own transition, and created the Career Bliss Coaching Program, which is essentially the 5 steps I walk women through to go from unfulfilled, lack of clarity to this is my path and here's how I'm going to get there.
Okay, great. So you learned the tools over this period. You applied those tools to yourself. You took a coaching program, and now you have your own company, which is hugely successful. And you take women through the same, or clients, right? Because I assume that you take men in as well.
I do.
Through this process, the same process that you went through, right? And you help them identify.
Yeah, and it definitely it's over time I add to it. As I see what's working for my clients, I replicate the stuff that's really good, and then I drop the stuff that I'm like, it's not as much. So over time, I'm refining as
right. Yeah, and it's all you start off with a hypothesis, and then you refine it and refine it and refine it, right? Through testing and all that. So you mentioned the 5-step process that would take you through this entire journey.
Yeah.
That you work with your clients on. Could you tell us about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this, how did I magically come up with this? Well, it was from all the reading and the research that I did in my own journey, and then what, my clients' journeys, right? So what I essentially found is there are 5 steps you need to walk through. If you're coming to me from a place of, I'm unhappy, I don't know what would make me happy, and I don't know how to get there either. I take you through these 5 steps. So, step 1 is what I call unpacking your story. So I'll get into that. I'll just give you the 5 first, and then I'll dig deeper. Step 2 is clarifying your vision.
Okay.
So we're looking forward. Step 1 is kind of looking in the rearview mirror and inside. Step 2 is looking, forward.
Yeah.
Step 3 is what I call gathering your clues. So that's all the assessments and all the introspection. Step 4 is narrowing it down. So, we'll talk about this, but I feel like where people get overwhelmed without the guidance of a coach is they take all these assessments, they read, and then they're like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
So step 4 is let's make sense of it. Let's narrow it down. And then 5 is make the transition, because I don't want to just say, oh, you found your passion, see you later. I want to build you a bridge.
Yeah. How do you implement it? Yeah. So for those who are listening on, Betty talks a lot about this 5 steps in her website, and the website will be show notes below. The link to her website will be in the show notes below. But she also is going to give us a freebie that lays out the 5 steps, and I'll give you the link in the show notes as well. But we will go through these 5 steps, and you will have it through the show notes. So Betty, could you walk us through the 5 steps?
Yeah, absolutely. So step 1, unpacking your story. So here's the deal. When people come to me, it's like they're ready. Like they were ready yesterday to make the transition. It's usually they're in a lot of pain. I'm not getting people that are like, I don't know, maybe. They're usually in pain.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I can't just go straight to the resume and the external, the tangible. We got to figure out, I coach from the inside out.
Right.
So I got to figure out, essentially, before we move to the tangible external stuff, resume, job hunting, interviewing, we got to tackle what's going on inside. You're not currently in your dream job. Why? What's holding you back? We have to isolate that. We got to tackle that first, because even if you do identify your dream job, right, we could get to that point. If you're still holding yourself back with fear or a limiting belief, you're not going to reach out and grab the brass ring.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you find something amazing if you've still got stuff going on in here. So we got to move you into that headspace so that you have the courage to reach out and grab the brass ring. So the first thing I do is also on my website. It's called the Get Unstuck Assessment.
Okay.
Get Unstuck Assessment. And for people that download the Surefire guide or sign up for emails, you'll get a coupon for $100 off this assessment if anyone wants to give it a try. But essentially, the Get Unstuck Assessment is going to identify what's the number one thing that's holding you back. So we're going to go deep into your mindset. Now, I coach under the premise, and I won't go too far down the rabbit hole here for your listeners, but I coach under the premise that the results that we see are stemming from our thoughts or beliefs.
Right.
It's a chain reaction. Your thoughts and beliefs are triggering how you feel. How you feel is triggering how you show up, how you behave. How you behave is triggering your results, right? So we got to isolate what's going on up here. So, you don't like the results you're seeing. What's going on up here, right? That's keeping you stuck. So the Get Unstuck Assessment is a customized report that my clients are going to get after they take this online assessment. And it's going to help you understand what level of energy you're operating from. And again, I won't go too deep, but there's 7 levels of energy that we're all operating from at any given point in time. And it's important you have awareness, what you're operating from, that you understand how that's affecting the results you're seeing, and that you're able to change the thought to change the results.
Right.
So that's step 1 is walking you through the Get Unstuck Assessment, then giving you steps, a series of coaching steps to help you change the thought, change the trigger.
Okay, so that's the first step. Unpacking your story, identifying what are your limiting beliefs, and then trying to change those beliefs, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So once we've done that, once we've unpacked the story, once we know, where the difficulty is, what's making us not want to make that leap.
Yeah.
We then take the next step, which is step number 2, right?
And one other thing I will add before I go into number 2, I should add, because I think this is a juicy one too, that people often overlook. And it's led to some really good results. Still part of step one is what I call analyzing your job history.
Yeah.
So I take a full session with my clients. It's not like when you come to me, I'm like, throw it away. Let's start fresh. No, like, let's look at every single job you've ever had. I want to know what you loved about each. There was something that you enjoyed. I also want to know what you're no longer willing to tolerate about each, or why you quit or why you left. These are clues. These are really important clues. I had one client a while back. She was an executive assistant, very unhappy. She worked for the CEO of our company. And she's, I don't want to do this. I want something completely new. I'm like, well, wait a sec. Let's just talk about what you did like about your job. And she admitted kind of like, well, I actually like when the CEO asked me to rearrange his office. I don't know. She's like, I just enjoy that. And down the road, what we uncovered is her dream career was opening her own personal organization business. She loved that kind of thing. That came from that itty bitty clue, because we stopped to take a look back in the rearview mirror before going forward. So that's another part.
And that's nice. So I guess the way to uncover that is to be really honest with yourself, right? To really know yourself well, and to look at, your activities at work and figure out, okay, this small, minute thing somewhere.
Bingo.
In my day, that's what makes me happy, right?
Yeah, we all have little moments in our day. We have the moments we dread, like, and then we have the moments that we're like, that's that little thing I like.
Yeah.
You could even do an activity where you just monitor yourself for a week. And at the end of each day, just take 5 minutes to journal.
Like that.
This is the stuff I did that I want to avoid in the future. This is stuff I actually look forward to. And think outside the box there.
Yeah. And I guess through observation, you will be able to uncover those little things.
Yeah. Well, and part of my job as a career coach is I am not trained. So a coach doesn't have the answers. I am trained to ask you the really good questions. So part of my job is to pull that out of people when they're like, there's something, but they don't know. And I'm just like, pulling that out of you. So
that's nice.
Combo. Yeah.
Okay. So once we've done that, once we've identified maybe that little thing that makes us really happy, then we move on to step number 2.
Yeah. So step 2. So now at this point, we've looked in our rearview mirror. We've done some looking inside. Now let's start looking forward. It's like, right? Like we're shedding the past. Yeah. Depending on the client, might need to do some what I call gremlin work, which is when you confront the inner critic that's keeping you safe and small, that's telling you you're not good enough. Depends on the client. Some people are, hey, I feel good. And that's great. Some people really are beating themselves up. So again, it depends whether I go there or not. But from there, step 2 is life plan. A lot of people wouldn't think to like, life plan, like, what do you care? I'm just trying to get my job. But what I say is, it's important to examine not just what you want your career to look like, but what you want your life to look like. Your career, it's just a bridge to get you closer to the life that you want to create. So, whatever that looks like, but at the end of the day, what I want to drive home to my clients is that every career path you're currently considering, right? I'm sitting here, I could do this, I could do this. Every career path you're currently considering will either move you closer to your ideal life or it's going to pull you further away. Yeah. So we need to work on what's your life plan? What's the target? Yeah. What do you want life to look like in 5 years? And there's different pieces of the pie. There's the fun and enjoyment. There's the romantic relationship. There's the living environment. There's your spiritual health, your family, your social relationship, your finances, of course, your career, your physical health, self-improvement, learning. This matters. Because your ideal career, when we get to the point in the process where you're looking at 8 different careers, the path you take needs to be aligned with the life that you're trying to create for yourself. So life plan is part of step 2.
I love that. And I think that that's so important. I think for me, that's a course that should be taught in college, right? Before students embark on this lifelong journey of pursuing this, degree after degree. And because
whatever choice you make has to support what you hope, for a life for yourself.
Yeah.
And unless you're clear on that, you might be pursuing something, and you may be 50 years down the line, and then you feel, oh, I made the wrong choice.
Case of the shoulds, hamster on a wheel.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going, like, wait a sec.
Yeah.
And aligned with the life plan, also in step 2 is your mission statement. So again, I have my clients build a personal mission statement. When we take these big jobs, we go to these big companies, they're essentially saying, here's our company mission statement. And when you sign on, you're signing on to their mission statement.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, whoa, wait a sec. What's yours? What's that thing that gets you so amped that you can't wait to fling off the covers in the morning?
Yeah.
Get to work. Define your why. Right? So I do some exercises when I'm brainstorming with people. What's that statement? What's that mission statement? Again, just like the life plan, your career that you're looking at has to some way align with your personal mission statement.
Yeah.
So that's really important too.
Yeah. And if there's no alignment, then we have the unfulfilledness and the unfulfillment and the dissatisfaction and all that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Then you wonder why you get the Sunday scaries, right? It's like, I never knew before becoming a career coach. It's funny because when I left my corporate role, I was all, wow, work-life balance. Don't bother me when I'm home. I'm personal life. Now I'm like, anytime, any place, client needs me. Oh, I can't wait to work because I'm living my mission.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like work anymore.
Yeah. And there's an alignment between your life mission and your, I guess, work mission.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's one and the same.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And I don't think many people get that, ever, sometimes not during a lifetime. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. There's a really cool book. And I wrote this in an article. It's called Where Will You Be 5 Years from Today? I think it's by Dan Zedra, Zedra. But it's got these little exercises to help you craft your mission statement.
Okay.
And it's so bizarre because I did that like 8 years ago when I was miserable. And my mission was something like, I want to help others, find and live their passion and operate from a place of inner peace. Mm-hmm. I was doing that. I didn't even know what that meant. And now I open my book 10 years later and I'm like, oh my God, I'm living what I planted in my brain, what I always knew. Just needed to tap into that.
Yeah. That's so great.
Yeah.
I'm going to look for that book. And if I find it, I'm going to put the Amazon link in the show notes below as well.
Oh.
Okay. So once you've clarified your vision, you have your life plan, and that's in alignment with your mission statement. Then you look for clues.
Yeah. So now, I tell people, put on your detective hats. Like now we're gonna go looking for clues. We're looking under every stone. Mm-hmm. We're shining the flashlight. We're seeing what we can find. Sometimes some of the clues end up being nothing, but sometimes they're incredibly important.
Okay.
So this is where I start to chuck a bunch of assessments at my clients. I do a business career assessment. And this one is a 20-page customized report, and it debriefs you on your interests, your motivators, and your skill set. And based on the intersection of those three things, it's going to spit out career recommendations in the business world. So there's that. There's also one online, Holland Code, or the RIASEC assessment. But this is, it was developed by John Holland. But it's an interactive report online that you get, and you'll get career suggestions based on your aspirations, your activities, your competencies, your interests, right? So these are just some specialized career type tests that obviously I know about, that I'm kind of throwing at my clients. Sometimes they'll see results and they'll, oh, I don't know about that, but sometimes it'll pique their curiosity. Yeah. So what I'm having them do during this time is, as you're getting these career recommendations, like pluck out the ones that you're curious about and keep those on a separate list. And we're going to come back to that. Strengths Finder, you can't go wrong with Strengths Finder, getting your your top 5 strengths. Right? In the perfect world, you're in a career that allows you to flex those strengths. One of mine was maximizer. You know, I want to bring out the best in people. So again, these are clues. A values assessment, that's super important, right? Yeah, we want to understand your life values, but also your career values. For me, some of my career values were autonomy, freedom, passion. I wasn't activating those values at my corporate job. So you got to make sure that your values, again, those are clues. Is that aligned with the job that you're in? I do a job function assessment. So essentially, I'm trying to figure out with you, not just what are you good at, but what job functions do you enjoy, like that light you up inside. And from there, I am going to coach you through creating your ideal day. So if I could wave a magic wand and you get to do the job functions during that day that just light you up inside, what would those be? Again, major clues. Personality assessment, you can't go wrong with Myers-Briggs. You know, I'm an INFJ, and I was in this role that required me to be extroverted, and I'm a one-on-one person. I want to be one-on-one with people. So again, wasn't aligned. Something I love to do with my clients, I give them case studies on their personality type. So not just the surface level stuff, but case studies that offer up career recommendations in different industries based on your personality type. And then I have one last one, which is really meaty, but it's a career question assignment. It's got 150 intensive questions that are going to pick apart what work environment do you thrive in? Are you, do you want to collaborate? Do you want to compete? What does that look like, right? So step 3, gather clues. We're shining the flashlight underneath every single rock, and we're plucking out the things that look like it might be helpful.
So are these different assignments that people take, or do you have one assignment that, are these different assessments that people take?
All different, yep. And so I'm using a client portal. So in between sessions, they are receiving these assessments, and then I'm able to see the results before our next session. And then we get on together, and I'm asking them questions, peeling back the layers of the onion and seeing what we can find.
And I guess the different assessments would be based on the different situations that the client is in, correct? I mean,
well, yeah. And it's like, here's the thing, when people take assessments just like a one-off, it's not enough, because Myers-Briggs is looking at your personality type.
Yeah.
Strengths Finders is looking at your strengths. There's all these different things we're measuring. What your motivators, that's the career leader assessment. So we're taking all the bits of who you are holistically into consideration.
Okay. And you had mentioned a career recommender just now?
A career leader.
A career leader, okay.
That's an assessment out there.
It's a separate assessment.
Yeah.
So for step 3, it's really just figuring things out and taking assessments to kind of know what your motivations are, your strengths are, your personality type. It's really self-understanding, I guess, right?
Totally. This is you just getting to know yourself holistically, not just a piece of who you are, but the whole picture of who you are.
Yeah. And it's interesting that a lot of us end up in jobs and that we show up Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, but if you're lucky, right?
Right.
And we don't really ask ourselves the real questions that matter. Who are we? What's our motivation? I mean, what's our strengths? Do we fit into this organization? Is my personality type right? For this role. So that's great. So it's a complete self-assessment with step number 3, and then step number 4. After taking all these assessments, you would narrow down the essential parts of your personality or self.
Yeah, so this is the juicy part. As you can imagine, step 3, Step 3 is overwhelming.
Mhm.
Like, what do I do with all this stuff, right? So step 4 is let's make sense of it. My style coaching, I'm very strategic. I like to quantify things. So the plan with step 4, narrow it down, is we take all these clues, all these results, and we're going to start to separate things out into either the nice to haves or the non-negotiables.
Yeah.
This is the part where it's like, oh yeah, in the perfect world, I'm working somewhere that, you know, has XYZ bonus, but my non-negotiable is, you know, I get to honor this value, or I get to use this strength. So I'm helping my clients sift through, and I'll encourage anybody that has taken assessments before, sift through, is this a nice to have or a non-negotiable? Question you need to ask yourself is, if I didn't get to exercise this one part of who I am in my next job, but I had everything else, would I be fulfilled? Would I be happy? And if the answer is no, that's a non-negotiable for you. So step 4 is that narrowing it down. From there, we also have a list of career ideas at this point, because we took all these assessments. So now you got a list of stuff you're curious about.
And
So
when you say career ideas, is it something like, you know, is it something broad like math related or language related, or has it become specific enough like law or medicine?
Should be as specific as possible at this point.
Okay.
And if people are unsure, if they're like, well, how would I know? I've never done this before. This is the part of the process where I'm giving you homework, research homework. So you're going to do informational interviews with other people doing these roles you're curious about. You're going to get in Facebook groups of that industry or that field and ask. These are the people living this life. Ask them, what are the different derivatives, right, that I could potentially jump into? So part of step 4 is also the research, right? Learning more about it. That's important, because what I'm about to give you is something that I call the Dream Career Scorecard. And on the scorecard, you're going to list all the career ideas you're considering, you're researching, you're curious about, across the top. And then on the vertical row, you're going to list all your non-negotiables. Has to honor this value, has to honor this strength, has to, you know, blah, blah, blah with my personal mission. And I'm going to have you quantify it. I'm going to have you rank out to what degree on a scale of 1 to 5 does each non-negotiable get fulfilled by each career you have listed. If you're not able to rank it, we got to do more research. I'm going to give you more resources. You're going to talk to more people. But ultimately, we're going to get you to a place where you're going to score it out. You're going to see each career that really was kind of nebulous, and I don't know, how would I know? They're each going to have a score now. And this is really the point where my clients had that light bulb moment. It's like, oh my gosh, like no matter what way I look at it, this is the path that scores the highest for me.
Oh, wow. So when you talk about non-negotiables, are non-negotiables the results of an assessment that kind of relates more to who you are at your core? So kind of like, you know, Myers-Briggs personality type.
Yeah.
You know, those would be more non-negotiable types. So like let's just say I'm an introvert. One of the non-negotiables would be, you know, you wouldn't expect me to be a performer, right?
Yeah.
And that would be a non-negotiable, as opposed to an assessment that kind of identifies interests. You know?
So good. That's a really good question. So what I would say is a non-negotiable is a preference. For example, if you and I are both introverts and we both do our Myers-Briggs, and I am, do you know your Myers-Briggs? Are you introvert?
I don't, I've taken Myers-Briggs before and I don't remember what I was, but I don't think I'm an extrovert.
Okay. So let's just say we both tested out introvert. For me, I might say, hey, introvert. If I don't have at least 50% of my workday by myself, reading, researching, developing ideas, I'm going to feel really edgy. I'm going to feel unfulfilled. So my non-negotiable is 50% of the time I need to be in my introverted space. Whereas you might say, yeah, I tested out introverted, but I don't need that much alone time. maybe I only need, I don't know, 25% of my day in my office with my door shut. Mm-hmm. So it's a preference thing. Just because your strength is this, or your value, or your personality type, it doesn't mean that for you it's a deal breaker. That's where, I'm going to challenge you to say, hey, imagine if we found you a job where this salary and this, it had your strengths and your values, but it didn't have this one thing. Okay. Would you be happy? And if you're like, actually, I wouldn't be happy if I didn't have flexibility, then that's your non-negotiable.
So I guess, right. So I guess, let's just say the exercise would be, you've been offered a job that pays $300,000 a year, and you have all of these perks. The one thing is you have to be out of the home, most of the time. You cannot get home to your daughter till 10 o'clock.
Yep.
And if spending time with my daughter is essential, that would be a non-negotiable.
Got it. Yeah, you're looking at your list of non-negotiables, everything else, and you're saying, imagine if I had all this stuff, but not this one thing. Mm-hmm. Would I be fulfilled? For you, spending time with your daughter, if the answer is no, I wouldn't be fulfilled, then that is your non-negotiable.
Okay, I get you.
Yeah, good question.
Okay, all right. So I think we have narrowed it down.
Yeah, now we've chosen our choice.
Yes, and we have an idea after talking to people, interviewing people, being on Facebook groups. We have, let's just say, a list of, 5 possible careers. Let's just say a lawyer, a therapist, a coach, a couple more. What do we do from here? Because they're quite different career stats, but there are some commonalities, but they require different certification, different degrees. How would you go about that?
So the scorecard is really your answer. Once you fill that out and quantify it, I have clients sometimes up until the scorecard, they're, I'm not sure. The second they see everything ranked and you're like, whoa, coaching is a 60 and the one after that is a 45. Mm-hmm. Like, no matter what way I spin it, coaching fulfills most of my non-negotiables. So that's the light bulb moment. And how did you get those answers? Well, you did informational interviews. You talked to humans doing each of these jobs. You asked them questions to determine whether each path would fulfill your non-negotiables so you could rank it. Mm-hmm. You researched. You got in Facebook and LinkedIn groups with people doing this field. So you've done all that hard work, and that's why you're able to rank. And that's really the light bulb moment. The only caveat, because, and I have to be objective with coaching, so I can't just quantify everything with people. There's also the gut test. Yeah. So even once you see your score, the gut test is, as you look at your top 3, which one from the inside makes you feel like a little bit of a tingle, a little bit of excitement? Yeah. Which one feels expansive? Yeah. That's your gut talking, versus which one feels contracted? Which one puts a lump in your throat? Yeah. Which one tightens your chest? That's your gut saying, mm-mm. So it's a combination of quantifying, scorecard, and the gut test.
Okay. And when you talk about the scorecard, is that a quantitative assessment, right? From the way you described it, like you get 60 points versus 45 points.
Yeah.
And is that a calculation based on your research on Facebook and LinkedIn?
Yeah. So I guess I wouldn't call it an assessment. It's more just a tool. Okay. It's really just a simple spreadsheet where we are looking at your non-negotiables, and the scale that I use is a scale of 1 to 5. You would rank something. So let's say one of my non-negotiables is autonomy. I need autonomy, and I'm looking at each job choice, right? You want to rank each job choice on a scale of 1 to 5. So 1 would be that career, based on my research, would not at all fulfill my autonomy non-negotiable. A 5 would be, yes, based on everything I read, everything I found out, everyone I talked to, this would fulfill. And then obviously the in-between, 2, 3, 4. So it's just a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It's just a tool.
And you would get that number based on what you find out on these groups, right? So you would ask people there, in your line of work, how much autonomy do you have? And people may respond a lot or none, and you would use that information to
best case scenario. And believe me, I'm an introvert, so this to me was like but getting on the phone. So I give my clients a little script to reach out to people, and you feed them an ego cookie about hey, I noticed your experience, you've been doing this, I've read your article, it's incredible. Hey, I know you're super busy, but if you had 10 minutes to jump on the phone, I'm considering a career transition, I'd love to hear your journey.
Okay.
And it's a probability game, so you want to reach out to like 5 or 10 people. A couple will get back to you, and then a smaller amount will get on the phone, and then you really pick their brain.
Okay.
But that's part of the research. And I give my clients a list of, here are all the ways you can research, because it depends on the role. Yeah.
And I think if I were in that position, the phone call would be difficult for me.
I feel it too. Hey, fellow introvert. But what I tell my clients is, this is, besides your health and your family, this is the most important thing in your life. We spend 1/3 of our lives working, 1/3. So you got to get this right. So this is one of those things where I just really try to pump people up to just do it, get on the phone, and always, you can come from a place of service. What can I do for you, person on the other line? And you're developing a relationship too. Could be a networking opportunity down the road.
Yeah. That's great. So, you have narrowed it down and you are ready to make that transition.
Yeah. So yay, chose our choice. Take a hot minute to celebrate here, because it's hard work getting to this spot. And now it's making the transition, right? So it's building the bridge. So couple things I walk my clients through in step 5, making the transition. Create a target company list. So that's obviously hard to do before you've chosen direction.
Yeah.
Once you've chosen direction, we walk through a series of exercises to create a target company list, right? So whether that's looking up great place to work, or, you want to stay local and you look up the businesses in your area potentially, or you talk to your contacts. There's a variety of ways to go about it, but you want to create a target company list, because that's going to be where you're going to go network, right? It's hard to kind of network generically. You want to target. Yeah. The next thing you want to do is, obviously, it's the marketing material, right? So now we're going to brand you. So your resume's got to be targeted in this new direction. So it's got to get a facelift. So with my clients, I either walk them through that through some exercises that I provide, and an ATS friendly template, so that it gets through the resume robot, or my VIP clients, I'll just assign my resume writer, who's a former VP of HR and recruiting. She'll rebrand you, right? Okay. So regardless if you hire somebody or do it yourself, you have to rebrand your resume. You have to retarget. Same thing with a LinkedIn profile, a targeted cover letter, so it's all that goodness. LinkedIn, I also have a LinkedIn branding specialist. I'll pull her in. She'll give a facelift, right? She'll interview you and retarget your LinkedIn page, so that even if you don't have that background, when somebody looks at it, they think, oh, this makes sense. I can understand her narrative, her journey, her why, right? And then from there, it's building the networking strategy. So what I don't want people to do, especially career changers, is, oh, let me just apply to all these jobs online. Like, no, I read a statistic that on average for every corporate job, it was like 250 applicants.
Oh, wow.
And then 4 to 6 get pulled in for an interview. So we don't want to go that route. We want to network. We want to tap the hidden job market. So I give my clients what I call a networking one-pager, where you're filling out for your network. Hey guys, this is what I'm targeting. These are the companies I'm targeting. Do you know anybody here? Here's how you could help me. Okay. Because there's a difference between if you go to your network and say, oh yeah, here's my resume. They're like, what do you want me to do with that? Versus a networking page. They're like, oh, I get it. Here's what you're targeting. Hey, yeah, I know somebody, you go to your hairstylist and say, yeah, I'm moving into this role and I'm targeting Google. oh, wow, my other client's from Google. Who'd have thunk? You're a hairstylist, right? But that's happened before for some of my clients. So you have to think about your primary network and who they could know.
Yeah, so this networking page is different from a resume in that it sounds as if it's like a media kit, right? Something like that with kind of bullet points. And
yeah, it's like your network is like, they love you, they know you, they like you, they trust you, but they're like, help me help you. I don't know how to help you.
Yeah.
Because you're clear on how I can help you.
Yeah.
And that's what that page is. It's telling them, guys, this is what I'm targeting. These are my strengths. This is how you can help me.
Yeah. And so when you had said network, I had initially thought, conferences and
could be.
Yeah.
There's the internal networking where you're leveraging the people in your inner circle and who they know, right? And then it depends on what role you're targeting. Yeah. For sure, there are certain roles where there are events that you could attend. What I always say is you want to immerse yourself with and surround yourself with your new tribe. Mm-hmm. You got to think about yourself in the career before you're in the career. This is your new tribe. Yeah. Surround yourself by these people, whether it's online, social media groups, whether it's in person. Typically, you want a healthy mix.
That's so great. In the short time that you've spent with us, I can actually see the journey. I can see that step by step, and I can feel myself at this point, at a conference networking. I love it. So those are the 5 steps that you take clients through. I like that.
I know you're probably like, let me just like marinate on all that. But
there's so much rich information to digest. One thing that I'm really curious about is, once you've made that transition, how do you know that you're in the right job? So you've done all this work, you've done all these assessments, you've identified, you've done the research, you've identified a career that you like, you've networked, and you found the new job, right? What are some signs that will tell you, besides, we talk about fulfillment and satisfaction, job satisfaction and all that, but that's quite ambiguous, So how do we know that, this is right for me?
Yeah. Well, there's 2 ways they could answer it. In the perfect world, which I know it's not the perfect world, but in the perfect world, if you've gone through this process that we talked about, those non-negotiables, that list you have, those are for life. Those are your that's your benchmark. Yeah. So, if I'm still working with you while you're interviewing, which, typically I am, I'm coaching my clients through their interviews. You're crafting the questions you ask. Hey, what questions do you have for me based on those non-negotiables? You're trying to spot check before you get in. Is it real? Is it all talk, or is this really the way these guys operate? So that's the perfect world. Now, for anybody, regardless of whether or not they went through these 5 steps and they're just sitting in a role right now and they're, I don't know, is it right for me? Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm not. Yeah. You got to brainstorm. So you got to ask yourself the tough questions. There are certain checkpoints that you can do with yourself. So number 1, stress and anxiety, right? So if I'm in a job and I'm like, I don't know, shouldn't I leave? Is your job the biggest source of your stress and anxiety? Is your job making you physically ill, causing emotional duress, right? The Sunday blues, everybody kind of gets them, maybe a little bit, but rank it on a scale of 1 to 10. How bad is it? Are you really dreading going into the office? At least 1 day a week, are you coming home angry or crying? Yeah. Right? So stressing and anxiety is a checkpoint. Money, can you afford to quit your job? Right? Yeah. So depending on how painful the situation is, can you afford to quit? Do you have a new job lined up? Yeah. What are your prospects for finding a new job? Yeah. Are you being underpaid at your current job according to industry standards? So money is the second checkpoint. Family, right? Third checkpoint. Does your job interfere with your personal life or your family responsibilities? Are you missing time with your kids? on a consistent basis because you're coming home late?
Yeah.
Is the relationship with your spouse suffering, right? Like I know when I was unhappy in my job, it would affect my relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a happier human now. You know, that affects the family. It's a third checkpoint. Your values, you know, we talked about some of this. So values is the checkpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Your life goals. Are you using the skills that you're best at? Your boss and your coworkers, we all know, like that's people leave bad bosses, not jobs.
Yeah.
So, you know, because what's that relationship look like? Are you dreading it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so that's so great. So once you've done that and you've decided, okay, this is not for me, then you come to step one, right? Which is
then it's like, let's do this.
Yeah.
And it depends, you know, keep it real. Like every client that comes to me is, people aren't cookie cutter, you know, they're all at a different stage in that 5 steps.
Yeah.
So it depends what typically my clients are coming to me unhappy and with lack of clarity. Mm-hmm. But I do get the occasional person that comes and says, I know what I want, but I don't know how to get there. Yeah. Right. And then I start you further down the process.
Yeah. So that's so great. You know, you've given us so much, and I think it's a lot to digest.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, do you have any advice for the listeners?
Yeah, guys. You're not trapped.
Yeah.
You are not trapped, even if it feels like you are.
Yeah.
Even if it feels like you have golden handcuffs. I promise you, you're not trapped. So, you know, everything we talked about today, it can feel overwhelming. Just take one step. Take one step this week. Mm-hmm. Choose one thing you're going to do to, depending where you're at on the spectrum, to either get some more clarity, or if you know what you want, to take a step to network, or to, you know, pick one thing, and just chip away little by little. But it's possible.
That is so awesome. That's great advice. That is great advice. Step by step, little by little.
Yeah.
And it all adds up.
Absolutely.
So I know that some of the listeners are going to want to find you. How can we find you?
Yeah, so I'm just at Betty Kempa, BettyKempa, M as in Mary, P as in Paul, .com. And I also have a lot of resources on my page. So my blog, just about every topic that we've talked about today, I've written some kind of expansive article about. So feel free to dig in.
Okay, that's great. So the link to your website is going to be in the show notes. And Betty has generously offered her free surefire guide to finding your passion. And the link to that PDF download is also going to be in the show notes.
Good stuff.
So thank you, Betty. Yeah. I was going to call you Betty.
Yeah, I get it all.
You know, but thank you. I mean, this is so instructive. I mean, it's so practical and hands-on, and I think that anyone in the audience who's actually considering moving and switching careers, I think this will really benefit them. So I want to say thank you for spending this hour with us.
Thank you.
Tremendous value. You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Same.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Heart-Centered Life podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, head over to elinaboyd.com for our free resources and materials and to access the show notes for today's podcast. Until next time, thank you for tuning in.
Spread the word by leaving a rating and review on iTunes.